3 chapter book called Ghosts in the House today. Oh, interesting. So it's kind of a little spooky at some parts, but not too bad, it's not too scary. So I want you to just look at the first page, this title page that says Ghosts in the House. What do you notice about these kids? That's the schoolhouse in the back. I want you to notice, what do you notice about the kids based on what they're wearing and what the schoolhouse looks like? What do you think about when this story takes place?
It's a long time ago?
A long time ago, that's right. So let's look at our table of contents. Table of contents in a fiction story is a little bit different than a nonfiction story. It's kind of just giving us a little brief snippet of what that section might be about. So our first chapter is called
Noises
in the Night. Oh, so there's going to be some kids in here. They're going to hear noises in their house at night, and they're going to think it's ghosts. But I'm not going to tell you if it's ghosts or not. The next part is called Lies and Lullabies. So what's going to happen is the kids are going to ask their parents what's happening. Do you think the parents are going to give them the truth or a lie about what's happening with those noises? Probably a lie, because it's called Lies and Lullabies. And then there's another chapter called Shadows Beyond the Door. And there's an epilogue. Have you ever heard an epilogue before? An epilogue is after the story's over. It tells you what happens after the story is over. So this is actually a book that's historical fiction. That means it's a not exactly a true story, but something that could have happened in the past. Okay? And then there's a glossary. We don't usually have glossaries in fiction stories, but in this one we do because this happened a long time ago. There's some words that are used that we might not be familiar with today. So our characters in this story are Virginia and Caleb. Say Virginia.
Virginia.
Okay, say Caleb.
Caleb.
Those are our main 2 characters in the story. And just like you thought this was a long time ago, this was in the 1830s. So almost 200 years ago. This is 2015. And this was in rural New Hampshire. And I want to talk to you about what the word rural means. The opposite of rural is city or urban. That's the opposite. So what do you think rural might mean?
In the country?
In the country. Does that match kind of like what you see in the pictures here? Okay. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what's going to happen in the first chapter. In the first chapter, Caleb and Virginia are going to say that they hear spooky things in their house, and they wonder if it might be ghosts. Okay? So we are going to do some of that reading on your own in a few minutes, and then after we're done with the chapter, we're going to talk about it together. But as you're reading, I want you to read silently or in a whisper voice. It's up to you. But as I tap into you, I want you to read out loud to me. And I'm going to help you with any words you get stuck on, and I might ask you some questions about what's happening. But it's really important as you read Noises in the Night that you pay attention to what's happening, because we're going to talk about what the chapter is about afterwards. Okay, so go ahead and start silent reading or whisper reading.
Virginia had a long walk to and from school every day. She liked walking through the farm fields because it gave her time to think. Sometimes she'd meet up with friends and they'd pass the time talking. One day Caleb told her that he had heard strange sounds while staying at his grandmother's house. His grandfather had died recently, and many of his belongings were stored in the attic. Caleb said that anytime he walked past the stairs, he'd felt a cold chill.
What do you think that means, that he died recently and many of his belongings were in the attic? What do you think belongings might mean?
Maybe his things?
The things that belong to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Later in the evening, she was so exhausted that she worked on her homework. She fell asleep in her chair. Her mother had to help walk her upstairs to get ready for bed.
So what happened that evening?
She went home and did her chores and had to do her homework, and then she fell asleep, and her mom had to help her upstairs.
Why was she so tired?
Probably because she did her homework and did her chores so fast.
Oh, okay.
In her chair, her mother had to her upstairs to get ready for bed. Good night, Virginia. Sleep well. Virginia's mother kissed her daughter on the forehead, and she climbed it under the quilt.
Okay, good. So that sentence was a little choppy, so sometimes whenever I sound a little choppy, I'll go back and read the sentence again, because you figured out all the words, and I just need to say it a little bit more smoothly. So can you try that? Virginia's.
Right here?
Mhm.
Virginia's mother kissed her daughter on the forehead as she climbed it under the quilt.
Okay, so let me show you about the word, this word right here. So you saw it was climb, you saw there was an ED, right? You know when we did that lesson with ED, you could say ed, d, or t. I'm going to say it for you guys, you listen. Climbed, climbed, or climbed. Which one sounds like one you know? She climbed under the quilt, she climbed under the quilt, or she climbed under the quilt?
Climbed.
Climbed. Okay, so read this again. As she
climbed under the quilt.
and this gives us a picture clue of what a quilt is. What do you think a quilt is?
Blanket.
Mm-hmm. Okay, everybody stop there. So we'll continue with you finish noises in the mic, okay? So I want to ask you, whenever Caleb and Virginia were walking home from school, what were they talking about?
His grandpa died, and his stuff was at his house in the attic.
And why was he talking about that?
Because he heard noises, and he's scared.
And what did that make Virginia think of?
That it was haunted.
Uh-huh. And what else did that make her start thinking?
That she too lived in an old farmhouse with an attic, and she thought that maybe her attic was haunted.
Sounds like they're kind of getting each other worked up, huh? Like whenever you hear a spooky story, it makes you start getting scared too. It sounds the same way, right? So when Virginia went home that night, did you notice that she did a lot of stuff when she got home that night? What are some things that she did when she got home that night, friends?
She did her chores.
Can you find the little phrase where she talks about she did her chores on page 6 in the first paragraph? There's a bold word in there. It says, instead, she quietly and feverishly did her chores. I wonder what that means. What could I do to figure out what the word feverishly means?
Look at the back of the book,
Okay, how do you know that's a word that you can look in the back?
because it's really black.
Yeah, we call that bold, right? So let's look in the back at feverishly. And what is the definition for feverishly?
Done quickly and with a lot of energy.
Quickly and with a lot of energy. So act out what that might look like if you're washing the dishes feverishly. Yeah. Okay, so why do you think when she got home she was feverishly doing her chores?
To keep busy.
What was she trying to keep her mind off of?
The ghost.
Yeah, sometimes if you're trying not to think about something, you do something else. Because if I read the sentence before that, it's going to help me. When Virginia arrived home, she wanted to ask her mother if she believed in ghosts, but she decided against it. Instead, she quickly and feverishly did her chores. So instead of asking her mom about it, she avoided the subject and did something else, right? Okay, so one other word that I kind of talked to Vanessa about was the word quilt. And we kind of just looked at the picture for a clue. That's something else that you can do if you don't know what a word is. You can look at a picture, right? So if I look at this picture on page 7, what can I, and 6, it says she covered herself with a quilt. What is she covering herself with in that picture?
Blanket.
A blanket. It's another word for blanket, right? It's kind of a fancy blanket where people take scraps of material and sew it together, but it's still just about keeping yourself warm. Okay, so what do you guys think is going to happen next time we come and we read about lies and lullabies? What do you think is going to happen next in this story?
She's going to talk to her mom and dad.
Ah, how did you know that?
They're sitting at the table together.
Yeah, very good prediction. And we said we thought they were not gonna tell the truth, so we'll change that prediction next time we get back, right? Okay, so I wanted to show you really quickly, I wanted to show you a couple of words with my marker. So I wanted to show you this word. Sometimes whenever you come to a word that you don't know, you can look at it and see if it's made up of more than one word or more than one part. So the word that I see here is a compound word. It means it has two words in it. Can you identify the two different words that are in this word? Head is one, good. And then did you know this is a word too? It's probably not a word you use a whole lot. For. It's not like this for, it's a different for. For means before or ahead of. So this is my head, this is my forehead, it's in front. So forehead is in front of your head. So sometimes whenever you don't know a word, you can look inside the word to see if there are more than one word or there are different parts. Okay. And then also if you find yourself, sometimes there's a really tricky sentence and you read it slowly to figure out the words, that's okay. But after you read it slowly, I want you to go back and reread the sentence more smoothly. Watch me. So if I did this, if I said, when Virginia arrived home, so see how I really took my time to kind of sound those words out a little bit, but once I got them, I went back and I reread it smoothly. That will help me understand the story if I go back and reread it. Okay? So whenever you're off and you're reading by yourself, if you find yourself slowing down, that's okay, but just finish that sentence out and then go back and reread that sentence so that you know what's happening in the story. Okay, so guys, next time we get back together, we'll be reading Lies and Lullabies.